Believe it or not, sex addiction is not about sex. In this video, I'm going to show you what it's really about, and I'm going to talk to you about a process to actually address the roots of a sex addiction so that you can overcome it. If there is anything that I know something about, it's sex addiction. I've treated sex addiction for over a decade. I understand everything about it. I'm known as the expert on the betrayed, the addicted, and the expert because I'm an expert about sex addiction. That's why I can tell you that sex addiction is not about sex, because I've understood it for so long. And I actually get to see what drives a sex addiction, what creates a sex addiction. I'm going to give you 4 things that sex addiction is actually about instead of sex. And as you hear what those things are, you'll understand why they play into creating a sex addiction. You'll also understand how to actually address those things so that you don't fall into the trap of sex addiction over and over again. I did a video in the past where I said that sex addiction is not about sex. And I had some partners of sex addicts watch the video, and they didn't like that. They didn't like what I was saying because they were saying, what do you mean sex addiction is not about sex? My partner wants to go have sex because it feels good. They want to act out sexually because it feels good. They're accountable for that. It's all about sex. It's all about their selfish desires and their needs, and that's why they do that. The fact of the matter is there's a difference between somebody's sexuality and somebody's sex addiction. We all are sexual beings. We all desire to do things sexually. We all have what's called arousal templates. We all get stimulated and are excited by sexual things. That's true. But when somebody has consistent, compulsive behaviors that lead to living an unmanageable life and consequences that they don't want, yet they continue to do it anyways, then they're struggling with an addiction. And that addiction is coming from a different place than just wanting to feel good sexually. Before I tell you what sex addiction is actually about, please subscribe to my channel. I talk about sex addiction all the time. Like I said, I'm the expert on sex addiction, so I can help you in many ways overcome a sex addiction. I hear the same story all the time, and this is how the story goes. When I was 11 years old, I found pornography and I started watching pornography. I didn't tell my parents about it because they never talked to me about sex. And I also discovered masturbation, which felt really good. Masturbation pornography, I was hiding it from everybody. And what happened was I realized that every time I felt bad, I could make myself feel good by acting out with pornography and masturbation. If I was bored, if I was stressed, if I was tired, I could look at pornography and feel good. And I started to use the pornography and the masturbation to cope with life. I used it to deal with the pains of life. So instead of working through those emotions, I actually developed a pattern and a habit of numbing my life out through using pornography and masturbation. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who's ever looked at porn or masturbated is creating an addiction. I know that that's not true. But if you have started to use something to deal with your emotions, then you're going to gain a dependence on that thing. It's going to create pathways in your brain where when you feel bored, you're going to go to it. When you feel stressed, you're going to go to it. The same thing happens with drugs and alcohol. It happens with sex as well. When you're 10, 11, 12 years old, your brain is in development. Your brain is just learning how to cope with this world and cope with life. Those are critical times in our life. And if you insert something that you're hiding and using compulsively, you have a propensity to use it more as an adult to try to avoid pain. Sex is a very interesting topic to study and discuss, especially in today's day and age where you can find almost anything online. Because what's so interesting about it is we sexualize our shame. Now, what I mean by that is our arousal or our connection to other people sexually often mirrors the type of shame that we feel in our life. Let me give you an example. If I feel like I'm really weak and unseen and nobody cares about me, then my sexual fantasies will probably involve some type of domination, some type of power, some type of feeling good enough because so many people are seeing me. It would lead to those type of sexual behaviors. If my shame says nobody loves you, nobody cares about you, I might fantasize about having threesomes and having a lot of people want me and connect to me because deep, deep down I feel like nobody loves me. We use our sexuality to fill the voids in our life, to feel good enough where we don't feel good enough. The problem is it's in a fantasy land. It's not real. It's a fake sense of okayness. When you step into fantasy to get those needs met, you're not actually dealing with the shame. You're not healing that shame. Now I want you to think about, where does that shame come from? Why do you feel like you're not enough? Why do you feel like you're weak? Why do you feel like you're unlovable? That's a complicated question. It might have to do with your relationship with your parents. It might have to do with your trauma and your life experiences as a child. But that shame has nothing to do with your sexuality, but you're using sex to try to feel okay. Sex addiction is fascinating because if I feel like I'm unlovable, I feel like I'm not enough, and so I turn to fantasy and sex to fill that void and feel okay. While I do that, it feels great. It's wonderful. But after I'm done, I feel guilty, I feel shame, and I feel bad about myself again, which actually fuels me acting out again because it's saying to myself, you are bad, you are unlovable, you're not okay. So I end up back in fantasy and I end up back in lust and acting out so that I can feel okay again. The shame of the sex addiction is the root of the sex addiction. It's the core. The acting out is more of the symptom. The acting out is not okay. There's consequences to the acting out in a sexual addiction. But what really needs to be addressed is the shame underneath. Sex addiction is also about attachment. So hang in here with me while I go into therapy speak a little bit and I'll explain what I'm talking about. Sex addiction is an attachment disorder. When I don't feel like my parents love me or they don't see me, I don't feel validated, and there's neglect there, but then I find sex, I find pornography, I find masturbation, I find lust. For a split second, I feel okay. I feel loved, I feel desired. It might be fake. It might be fake by the person I'm looking at on the computer screen or whatever, but for a moment, I feel okay. So I soothe those attachment wounds with sex. After I soothe those attachment wounds, I feel bad about myself. The shame sets in and I disconnect from those around me. I don't want them to find me out. I don't want them to see me. So I disconnect from them. I isolate and I feel worse about myself. Sex addiction both soothes attachment wounds and causes attachment wounds at the same time. There's a song called Take Me to Church. I'm sure you've all heard it. It was really popular. If you listen really closely to those lyrics, he basically says, I don't need God. I don't need anything else. I just need sex. I just need my lover. I just want to go to the bedroom. And he talks about sex is his church. Sex is where he worships. Now think about what he's actually saying. He's saying, I don't have purpose. I don't have other things that do it for me. I don't have a belief in God. What I do have is that moment of bliss, that moment of ecstasy that I get to experience with sex. Sex addiction is driven by lacking purpose in your life. If you don't know who you are and you don't have purpose, then you're going to turn to sex to try to feel a sense of okayness. Try to feel a sense of excitement in your life. Now, sex being exciting is not a bad thing. Sex being arousing is not a bad thing. Sex is amazing. It's awesome. But when you have compulsion that you have to turn to it over and over and over again in deviant ways, in more risky ways, because you have such a void in your life, then that becomes a sex addiction. And that's what your sex addiction is about, not the actual act of having sex. Another thing that sex can do is give you a false sense of power and masculinity. Now, you do feel masculine and you feel good when you have sex, when you're connected to somebody, when you orgasm together, it feels great. But if you lack masculinity otherwise, then you're going to turn to sex over and over again to try to get that sense of okayness with your masculinity. So be careful of that, because you need to realize that you're okay, that you're powerful, that you're confident, whether you perform in the bedroom or not. If you're struggling with a sex addiction and you want to stop the behaviors, you want to stop acting out, you want to stop watching pornography every night, you want to stop pushing the limits, there's an important thing that you need to do. You need to stop focusing on the don'ts. Now, what I mean by that is stop focusing on the acting out. Stop focusing on just trying to stay sober. Instead, focus on addressing the roots to your problem. What's actually the issue? And do the healing work that requires. Do the trauma recovery work. Step into some courage. Learn how to identify yourself differently than what the shame messages are telling you. And that will help you actually heal from your addiction, which, by the way, will lead you to more sobriety and less acting out. If you found this video helpful, then you gotta check out my other video, Why Are So Many Christian Men Miserable? And it will actually touch on these roots of addiction that I'm talking about.